Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Slinging Sip on American Coffee Trip. Today, presenting a coffee that isn't special because it was a fantastic coffee shop, but it is special because it marked a very important moment for this channel. The first moment. Not the first video where I was like, welcome to American Coffee Trip, that really janky, not so proud camera presentation video. The first single sip video ever from Eselon Coffee Roasters. Got a single origin Guatemala here. And I didn't pick this up. I was actually handed this at my job. They're looking for different coffees to potentially stock on the shelves at the co-op right now. And the general manager gave me this one. She wanted me to try it out. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do here. First sip, first time ever opening this bag, and I have decided lately that I'm going to give the Cezve Turkish pot a little bit more love. It has not really appeared on my channel much at all, and so I've just been making a series of videos with this Turkish coffee pot, especially now that I'm actually confident in making the recipe correctly with it. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start my water. And I'm going to heat my water up to 60 degrees Celsius. And that will be my base temp starting out. Alright? Get my scale here. I have a spoon, I got my grinder. Now, when you're grinding for Turkish coffee, you want to adjust your grinder as fine as it can be. And a lot of grinders cannot grind fine enough for Turkish coffee, so keep that in mind. I got the Kinu M47 specifically because I could make cold brew and Turkish coffee with it, and it had high quality components that were going to last forever. Even though that's the base one. Base one is still fantastic. Kind of have to dig in there to open this up. Oh, this is weird. It's these pull tabs here. So what I actually have to do is grab the scissors. Why, oh why, do coffee shops bag their coffee like this? I need to chew through the top of the bag and it leaves this ugly scarring on the top. Alright, so there's a single origin Guatemala here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to weigh out about 13 grams of coffee. Whatever the output ends up being, it's going to be a 1 to 10 cup ratio. So 13 grams of coffee, 130 grams of water going in, right? Close this bad boy up. Make sure to let out all the air in your bag. This is very important. You want to keep the coffee fresh as long as possible. Making sure this is sealed up as tight as possible. Alright, so next thing I want to do, your grinder should be set. Grind a very fine powder. And what you'll notice when you're grinding it is that it takes freaking forever to grind the coffee. That's how it should be. So now that my coffee is ground up, put this on here. Water is heated up to 60 degrees Celsius, so I'm just gonna throw that in the vessel here just to heat it up a little bit. Alright. I'm just about You know, it actually helps to put the coffee in first. That does help. Hold on, my goodness. Okay, so 13 grams of coffee in there. Tap that, get it as flat as possible. And basically your coffee is ground into a powder when you're doing this. So I'm gonna zero my scale out. I'm gonna probably just wait for the water to get right back up to 60 degrees Celsius because I kind of screwed that up. But in the meantime, I'll talk a little bit more about this coffee itself. So single origin, Guatemala. It's USDA organic, fair trade certified. This is a medium roast, and you got tasting notes of cherry, baker's chocolate, and caramel in here. So I do see some red flags with this coffee in particular. One thing that isn't a problem is the roast and the bean coloration and the even distribution of color. And it looks like it's a very consistent roast, so they did a good job doing that. The lack of information on the sticker. I don't know the altitude, I don't know the grower, I don't know the person who actually grew this coffee. And then the bag itself. I'm not a big fan of this material, nor, and this one's important, nor am I a fan of having to cut the top off of the bag. A good coffee bag should have a little bit of a pull tab. You just rip it off. You can open it, you can seal it. Easy, square, done. Not so much with this. All right, so our water's ready. I actually have the coffee inside the vessel this time. Silly mistake, silly mistake. All right, so I start my timer. I had 13 grams of coffee in there. Let's go for an even flow. We're going right up to 130. I'm paying more attention to my flow rate. Okay, so we're at 130. Now what I'm going to do, stirs. You want to kind of churn it. You don't want to be too gentle with it. And so now I'm starting. Minus 5 seconds. Restarting the timer, so we have 45 seconds of extraction in the 60 degrees Celsius water. Immediately take it off, throw it on the burner. Choose the smallest burner that you have if you have a gas stove like this, right? Or if you have a stove, like a camping stove, take that outside, you can work with it. I've made this coffee outside before. I made this coffee on a frozen lake. It's freaking amazing. So I'm starting with medium heat, and I'm watching this timer right now, right? So we're at 30 seconds. At about a minute, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change the heat. I'm gonna raise the temperature quite a bit. I'm looking for a brew time between 2 minutes and 2 minutes and 30 seconds, typically. You can go longer or shorter depending on the origin of coffee. Could work out in your favor or not. Last brew I did was a 2-minute 45-second brew. Ended up being very delicious. So I'm gonna dump this out. Okay, at a minute. Whew, shouldn't have done that. So what you're gonna start to see, or what I'm seeing, is that coffee's starting to really agitate. And bubbles are starting to form. You can see it's starting to crust on the top. And what you're watching is the rise of the coffee. So it starts at a certain level. And you're controlling the heat to which, at your final brew time, the coffee reaches the lip and you are going to lift the brewer off, away from the heat. In one smooth motion. So we're at 155. Coffee is starting to really rise now. Tilt it. Till you start to see a large amount of silt from that. Turn off the heat. Okay, so that was a 2-minute and 45-second brew time on the heat. Another 45 seconds off the heat with 60 degrees Celsius water, which gives me a total final brew time with varying temperatures of 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So that is exactly what I'm looking for when I'm brewing my cup of coffee. I give the proper amount of agitation. When I weigh my coffee, then I add the water. I give 20 stirs, 10 stirs either side, and I'm doing kind of a gentle, not very aggressive, but you want to give it a nice stir. Flick it. It's a very powdery coffee. You want to evenly distribute it throughout the liquid. Right after that, right around the 45-second mark, between the time that the water first makes contact and you finish doing those stirs, you should lift it, have your heat ready, and then you start the timer again. At the minute mark, you change your heat. So I always start at like a medium to maybe just above medium for the first half of the brew. And then for the final half, I turn it all the way up. And that seems to have worked for me with this flame. It is going to be different for you on your gas stove or whatever flame you're using. Don't use the metrics that I'm using here because you're going to have to find out for yourself what works for you and what gets your optimal brew time window. Right? So this is an unfiltered coffee brewing method. As you can see, there was no paper filter, there was no mesh like in the French press here. You have this little mesh thing here. So even though the brewing method that I use for the French press has it to where the coffee's sticking to the side and I'm trying to prevent silt from coming through here, there is still something that's stopping silt from coming through. This brew method is nothing like that. Or with a pour over, or an AeroPress, or Chemex, to a higher extent, you got a paper filter that's sitting here, and it drips through, complete percolated method, no silt, and you get a very clean cup of coffee. That is not what you're going to experience with Turkish coffee. It's going to be very different. So I'm just waiting. I'm not timing this part. I don't go that far. I just let it sit. Because when you're brewing it, you're starting from a temperature of 60 degrees Celsius and you're bringing it way up to that boiling temp where it's rising and it's almost coming out of the brewer. And that was really interesting to see, right? And you fill up the Cezve. Typically going to fill it up right around here. And so you're brewing with it, and that moment where you take it off the heat, the moment when the coffee is done, it's right when the coffee reaches basically this upper lip right here. It starts to bubble up. The closer you can get without stilling it, the better. Bonus points, I'd give that. But that's how it is. Alright, I think I'm ready to give this coffee a good old try. I'm going to kind of lean over here. Is this coffee delicious? Is this something that I want to try in the future? I'm going to guess that it will be better than any coffee that I've tried at the co-op. Any coffee. I'm gonna guess that it doesn't quite come to the level of something like Share Coffee Roasters, which is in the area that specifically just brews fantastic specialty coffee. But who knows? They had a nice roaster in there. They had a nice space. It's just one of the problems with Eselon is they're trying to do a lot of things. And that can be executed really well if you absolutely overload the crap out of yourself and you have a lot of expertise that's reliable, which in a small business industry is very difficult to do. Extending to coffee, sandwich products, baked goods, things like that. Which is why I kind of move in the direction of a cooperative lifestyle where you have different specialists working in the same exact space to raise the quality of the ingredients of everything. In general, equal exchange deals, which reduces the cost of both sides while raising the quality of everything. Totally. Let's give this a sip. Let me give this a sip and tell you all what I think about it. Baker's chocolate. Okay, that's interesting. I have mixed feelings on that coffee. The sweetness of the cherry does come through on the initial tasting notes, but I do get a little bit of roastiness. And I don't use that characteristic kindly. Roastiness feels like a produced coffee. It has a certain smell to it. It's not exactly pleasant, and there was a little bit of bitterness. I don't know if that's exactly what they meant by Baker's chocolate, but I'm getting a bitterness that comes through. And that's kind of disappointing because I feel like this coffee could be good, but it's being interrupted by these unsavory characteristics. I want this coffee to be good. It makes me think about way back during my first coffee review. On one hand, my understanding of coffee was not quite to the extent that it is now. I would not have been able to actually even brew this cup of Cezve Turkish coffee back then. But I think I had a pretty good understanding of the quality of the latte. There was a lot of milk that was used, and it was steamed really well, and it was integrated very well, which gives a little bit more leeway for the espresso to falter. Now, what I was hoping for was that this coffee was going to be really good, and that the telltale signs that I see with, I know it seems really silly to point out, the coffee bag, the way the bag feels, the way the sticker kind of overlaps the edges of it's not the bag that gives off the red flag necessarily. It's more the attention to detail. A really good specialty coffee shop will have good attention to detail, right? So their roaster was large. It wasn't massive. It was a big drum. It was probably a 50 kilogram roaster. If Eselon Coffee sees this video, let me know in the comment section below how big your coffee roaster is. I'll also probably look it up online later as well. But typically, with a coffee roaster, you can get really good quality, 15 plus kilograms per batch of coffee. You can. But it gets harder and harder to track that quality as you increase the size of the production. What I typically suggest for coffee roasters, and I by no means can consistently roast coffee myself, I just learned the inner workings before kind of being booted out of that, is to maintain a small batch roaster, but to just acquire more small batch roasters. And if you're going to expand production, you're going to expand your influence to maybe say a wider region, you needed more production to have 2 different coffee roasters that are reliable at different locations in their given regions. Have an offshoot cafe and then have offshoot wholesale accounts that can represent and enjoy your product, right? And I understand that the logistics of that are very difficult, and it's much easier to just go big and just have one centralized facility and then mass produce your coffee. But then you lose what made that coffee special. You lose the ability to really dial in and track in how good each batch is. Which is what I believe happened with Mocha Joe's coffee, for example. I did a bike ride to Saratoga Springs, New York with my buddy Gray a long time ago. I think we were like 16. I remember going to Brattleboro, going into Mocha Joe's and having a fantastic latte from them. It was so good. Before American Coffee Trip, before I even got into the coffee game. And it changed. You know what changed? The way they produce the coffee. The size of their production changed. Great for them that they were able to supply more wholesale accounts. They were able to expand their influence to cover all of southern Vermont, but not so great that they kind of left the space of this small batch specialty coffee field, which opened up for places like 1A coffee roasters, like Abracadabra coffee roasters, like Black River Coffee Bar back when they existed. So that's just kind of how that evolved over time. Eselon coffee, I think the memory is better than the cup that I have right here, now that I finally brewed with it. And this was a very well dialed in Turkish cup of coffee. So I know for sure that this isn't that great. And I had just brewed with this SL28 Black Honey from Abracadabra. And I was freaking loving it. I was just sitting there in bliss with it. And I can't say that I feel the same way about Eselon coffee, which is disappointing. And it seems silly that having to cut the top of the bag off with a pair of scissors would tell me that this coffee wasn't going to be up to my expectations. But it's just, I've reviewed enough coffees and I've been to enough coffee shops and I've done enough to know the signs of consistency, quality, and overall what makes a good cup of coffee. So with that being said, guys, I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.